So now that we've got our bin made, what we're going to do next is we're going to unwrap the UVs, which means we create a template for us to do our texturing on top of, or underneath. So the first things first is make sure that our model is nice and finished. And then what I normally do is I like to have my UV map editor in the same sort of screen space as my model. So I go up to here into this group of screen sets and I just click the third one on down, and then you should get this screen. Obviously we're not going to use this screen, but if we go to panels at the top, then go down to panel, into this menu, and then go down to UV texture editor, we should get this screen. And what this weird group of lines is the actual mesh or the wireframe laid out in a UV texture map of our barrel. Now this is unusable as a texture, so our next step is to actually unwrap the UVs from our barrel to a usable state. So first things first, face tool, and we just want to select the inner rim of the barrel all the way around, and then holding shift and pressing the period key, full stop. What we're doing there is we're expanding our selection. So we want to expand our selection so that we've got all the faces from the very bottom all the way to the rim selected. And when you've done that, we go up to create UVs and then go to cylindrical map. And now you can see a change in our UV texture editor. What we've done is we've told this cylindrical shape of the barrel to unwrap evenly. With cylindrical models such as like barrels, pens, cans, the best way to map a UV is to do this with a cylindrical mapping. For the interior of the barrel, we're going to do things a little bit differently, using the same processes, but we're actually going to start selection from a different point of the barrel. So we want to select from the top rim area, and then again shift. What we're looking for here is we want the selection to come to this loop here. So shift and period. Now, because this group of faces downwards is part of the front of the barrel here, the exterior of the barrel, we have to stop our selection here. But what we can do is just by holding shift, we can make that inner selection, and then we've got the interior of the barrel selected. And then we do the exact same thing. We go to create UVs, cylindrical map. There you go. Inside the UV editor, we use the exact same controls as in a 3D space. So W to actually get our translate tool up, and we just want to move that out the way as well. We don't want to scale, we just want to move that out of the way. The next step we want to do is we want to select the bottom faces of the barrel. Now the best way to do that, I find, is just to drag a selection box so that we've got the interior and the exterior bottom bases selected, but then we also want to do the shift and double click selection trick to select this thin edge here. Now with both of those selected, we want to go to create UVs, and then we want to go to planar mapping, but then we want to go to the option box, and then we want to make sure the bounding box is selected, and then the y-axis is selected, because we're going to project the selection downwards. So click project, and then you'll see our bases. There's two faces there, but because we're taking the camera perspective, it looks like there's only one. Now, so inside the UV editor screen, we just want to go through and select UV, holding the right mouse button, dragging over to UV. Just drag a selection box over everything. And for this tutorial, we're not going to do anything crazy with moving UVs around or moving these shell. These are called shells, these little shapes. We're not going to move those around. For now, we're just going to go up to this tool. We're just going to select this tool, and this tool will rearrange everything so that everything fits inside the UV mesh nicely. Now the only thing I would ever do is just make sure that your edges aren't too close to the edges of this dark grey box. That seems okay. And the only thing we have to do now is just take note of what surface is what. So as you can see, this is the top of the exterior of the barrel, and this section is the top of the interior of the barrel. This is obviously the bottom. This is obviously the interior of the barrel. So now, with that all set up nicely, we want to go to, well, first we want to make sure we've got all the UV selected, then go up to polygons, go all the way down to UV snap, and this will bring up this menu. What we're doing here is we're taking a snapshot of this UV mesh that we can then take into Photoshop or whatever your editing software is for images, and we're going to take it in there in the paint. But for now, we're just going to give it a size of 512. Remember to width the power of 2s, 32, 64, 128, 512, and so on. And then we're going to change this image format. We're just going to change that from Maya if to PNG, and then in file name, we want to keep this as barrel images, but we want to change out UV to barrel UV. We don't need to worry about anything down here. For now, this is all we need to think about. So when that's done, just click OK. And then that would have saved a snapshot into our barrel images folder in our project window. And now the next step, always file, save scene as, and then we'll save our next increment. What we're going to do next is take this into Unity, and then we're going to set up a scene, and then we're going to bring our barrel in, and then we're going to set it up as a usable object and an interactable object within the scene. So the next step is to now open up our UV inside Photoshop. So file, open, and we just want to find our Maya project we've made, and then if you look in images folder, you'll find barrel underscore UV. If we double click that, we will get this. Now because we saved it as a PNG, it's left the white lines from the UV, but it's not got a background to it. This is what we want. So if we go to layers, we add a layer and just drag it underneath, what we'll find is that we now maintain our little wireframe, but we can still paint underneath it. So we have a guide now where we can paint our UVs to whatever we want. Brilliant.